You want a light on?
Yeah, that one.
We leave live, Dr. Kelly?
We are live, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Revere School Committee's Committee of the Whole meeting. We are joined by a number of folks. We're going to start off by doing a roll call of the members.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo. Mr. D'Ambrosio.
Present.
Mr. Ferranti.
Here.
Ms. Gravelisi.
Here.
Mr. Sinella. Ms. Ty.
Here.
Mayor Arrigo.
Here. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone's face. Usually I've been in everyone's school by now and been able to check in and see how everything's going. It's kind of a bummer not to be able to do that. I know the rest of the school committee members feel the same way. We are meeting today to discuss, and I'll go over the agenda really quickly. We have 3 items on the agenda. The first will be school improvement plan presentations. Then we have that we will discuss the calendar, and then we have a couple of motions. So when we go through the school improvement plan presentations, I will turn it over to Dr. Kelly to go through them, and any members, if you have questions, either raise your hand or use the raise hand function on Zoom. Dr. Kelly, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I want to begin by recognizing all of our elementary principals who are here with us today for this meeting. We're actually presenting our school improvement plans to the committee over 3 separate meetings. And as the committee knows, one of the things that we've done in the last several years to try to focus our work together and leverage our collective resources is to make sure that we're somewhat aligned in the work that we're doing. And so our practice has been to begin by building our school district improvement plan. We started that process last February with a community meeting that all of the school committee members attended. And from that community meeting, we took ideas about what was important to parents and teachers and students and built our district improvement plan out of that feedback. That was then shared with our administrative team. We refined our plan, put concrete action steps with measurable goals into the plan. And after the school committee approved it, we sent it off to schools so that the principals who are here with us today could present it to their instructional leadership teams and their parent advisors and other groups to develop their own school improvement plans that were based off of that district improvement plan. And by engaging in a process like this, it makes sure that we have cohesion in our work and that we're able to collaborate more regularly in the work that we're doing and support each other and have much more of a team initiative toward improving practices in the school department. So I just wanted to lay down that foundation, and I'm going to share the screen in just a minute to show the presentation. The committee did receive copies of each school's individual school improvement plan. There are some uniquenesses to them because as much as we want to collaborate and do our work together, there are unique needs to each of our neighborhood elementary schools. And those are reflected in the school improvement plans as well. So committee members have copies of the full school improvement plans. They will also be part of the public minutes from this meeting. And anybody in the community is welcome to look at those individual plans. But the principals have collaborated on a joint presentation where they're going to share what's in common in their plans, and then each will share what is unique to their plans. And I'll ask that the principals just take a minute to introduce themselves when they get to the unique part of their plan. And I'll begin sharing now. I don't know if one of you in particular is going to begin the presentation for us.
Before we do that, Dr. Kelly, I just want to acknowledge that that school committee member Fred Sinella has joined us as well.
Thank you,
Great.
Brian.
Thank you.
Hi,
Welcome,
Fred.
Mr. Sinella. Okay, I am going to share my screen. And I heard Dr. Napier say that he is going to begin for us, so. Here we go.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for meeting with us today, both the school committee and the community at large. It's really exciting to be able to share these plans with you. As you know, as Dr. Kelly mentioned, a big focus of our work this year is on equity. And so that's one of the things that you will see reflected quite a bit throughout these school improvement presentations that you'll be seeing from the various schools. As Dr. Kelly mentioned, there are commonalities that are derived from these district improvement plan. So we've taken those elements and made them appropriate to elementary schools, and these are specific areas that we will share with you that are common to all of our schools, and then each individual principal will talk about those specific elements that are a little different for their particular schools. Okay. So we can go to the next slide.
Is the next slide showing? No?
No, not yet.
Let's see. I'm gonna try resharing. Is that showing the second slide?
Yes.
Okay.
So, all right. So when we look at the school improvement plan, we have strategic initiatives, and there are 6 major strategic initiatives that are the focus of our work this year that we're going to be talking about and that are going to be the basis of this presentation. And the first one is Strategic Initiative 1.1, which is to increase the gender and racial diversity of staff, particularly among teachers and administrators. So some of the things that we're going to all be working on is focusing on increasing our staff of color and our staff that have have multilingual proficiency. We're also going to be looking to try to work with colleges and universities and other organizations to really support our candidates of color. We don't have an adequate representation of teachers of color. We have a little bit more in different professions like paraprofessionals, but we want to look into methods for seeing how we can increase those numbers by working with colleges and universities. And then finally, one of the strategies we have to support this goal is to really kind of identify and support our internal candidates, our paraprofessionals or future teachers, in helping them to obtain their credentials so we have sort of a grow your own type of strategy where we are encouraging people to come back to Revere Public Schools as educators. In the next slide, we're going to talk about specific strategies from the different schools. So I didn't introduce myself, sorry. I'm Percy Napier, I'm the principal at the Beachmont School. And one of the strategies that we have is to look into attending some of the job fairs sponsored by the Mass Partnership for Diversity in Education. And that's hopefully will be a good source of potential recruits of people who are interested in coming to work with Revere that's a little bit more diverse than our typical candidate pool.
Good afternoon. My name is Corbett Coots. I'm the proud principal of the Garfield Elementary School. And the short-term action step or short-range benchmark that we're committed to at the Garfield Elementary School this year with regard to this initiative is working towards including diverse candidates in all of our hiring processes at the school.
Hi, I'm Donna Bonarico. I'm the principal at Paul Revere School. One benchmark we're looking at for our school is to include our family liaison on our hiring committees. We have quickly found this year that our family liaison has become a really integral part of our team, our support team here at the school. And we believe she can bring a unique perspective to the hiring process.
Hi, I'm Melissa Lomas. I'm the principal over at the Hill School, and I'll be talking to you all a little bit about Strategic Initiative Objective 2.1, which is to provide training and learning experiences on anti-racism, restorative practices, and equity for all staff members and students. I'm excited about this because I think that the learning piece in this is where really a lot of the community building around these ideas can happen. So one of the big priorities here is to provide training and learning experiences on these practices for all staff members. And I've had some experience with restorative practices, but I'm excited to all share a common language about this and all be coming from the same space. So that's the general overview of this. Next slide, please.
So one of the initiatives at the Beachmont School is we are in the process of implementing a professional development series that is focused on culturally responsive teaching practices. And so we've begun with a focus on really providing historical context, and then eventually progressing to looking at issues of identity and self-reflection, and then moving towards very, very specific, tangible actions that teachers can take to be more culturally responsive and also to move students their learning in a way that really will help them become independent thinkers and learners.
And at the Garfield Elementary School, our school-based equity team will work to provide information, resources, and materials related to the areas of anti-racism and restorative practices and equity for all. And we'll provide that information, resources, and materials to teachers so that they can use those during their PLG or professional learning group meetings at least once per trimester.
At the Hill, our anti-racism committee has been working on developing, and then we'll work on a training program for PLGs with an internal equity rubric that we have for material and lesson assessment to just look at it for implicit bias, looking at stereotype bias and things like that, so that as teachers are planning and developing lessons and sourcing materials, they're cognizant of this idea that we should be looking at these materials to make sure that they're not perpetuating negative stereotypes or anything like that. The team's done a lot of work on this already. We're finalizing and refining, and then we're looking to test it out with several PLGs in the building. And our goal is that this becomes just part of the embedded practice of the school moving forward.
Sarah Humas-Tracy, principal at the Lincoln Elementary School. We are super excited to be collaborating with DESE through the Kaleidoscope grant for our deeper learning work. And we have already had a 2-day PD school-wide where we took a look at their equity pause, which is a protocol looking through the lens of equity at our curriculum and our task assessments. We have attended August, October, and December convenings, uploaded 5 tasks to their cohort hub, and are currently using school-wide PLG to focus on that equity pause piece and look at our task adjustments. So we're really excited, and it's pretty well underway.
At Paul Revere, we're looking to partner with an organization called Innocent Classroom. They provide training to educators on implicit bias, stereotype threat, and their work focuses on giving teachers strategies and frameworks for building relationships with diverse students, and especially with students of color. So that would be a year-long or more process that would provide training to teachers.
Strategic Initiative 3.1 is to create, adopt, and apply equitable practices across the district. We are all well underway, having established school-based equity teams that coordinate with the District Equity Advisory Board, and are both combining the district level work with school-specific work. And we are going to be working on implementing 2 of the identified priority equity actions and practices that we will all engage in.
One of the areas that we're going to be spending a great deal of time on, and it's kind of linked to what I mentioned before, is really focusing on developing across the school a shared understanding of equitable and culturally responsive teaching practices, because those terms mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And so in order to do this work well, we think we have to have a kind of a school-wide discussion about what that means, what it looks like, and how that is going to live in our school community, and how it's going to be presented to students in a way that's not only implement, but also it's going to be meaningful and have an impact.
And at the Garfield Elementary School, one thing we're very proud of and excited about is that our teachers are ready and willing and eager to take on leadership of this work. So teachers will facilitate and lead the planning of our equity team meetings, as well as set the agendas and really drive the direction of our equity work at the Garfield Elementary School.
The Hill, we are currently undergoing a complete revamp of our Expect Respect policy, which is our school-wide expectations, procedures, routines policy. And the hope is that as we receive trainings on restorative practices, and that as our lenses get broader in terms of anti-racism education, that those pieces start to influence and that our policy reflects the shifts in our expectations for our students and how we are working with them to help them to meet our behavioral expectations in the school.
The Lincoln Equity Team is currently reviewing our mission, our vision, and our curriculum to ensure it's free from bias, and then using that as a jump off point to delve deeper into our equity work.
At Paul Revere, our Equity and Anti-Racism Committee is going to receive a special training session from Innocent Classroom so that they will be prepared to lead the work at our school around this area. And they will coordinate with the district-wide Equity Advisory Board to ensure that we're aligned with the district policies and protocols.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Phillips, and I'm the principal of the Wayland Elementary School. At the Wayland, we have a working equity framework, and we are developing our theories of action from that framework. But our first sort of unifying lever of change is the one we're starting with, and that's the codification of our multi-tiered systems of support. And then our next lever, chosen both for its need and potential impact, is the refining of our behavioral support systems by incorporating restorative practices.
So the fourth strategic initiative or objective from the district improvement plan is focused on creating opportunities for parent engagement and input in school and district decision-making. So all of our schools are focused on these three areas as benchmarks. Increase equitable representation of parents in diverse school-based committees. So for example, our school improvement councils, our parent-teacher organizations, and other school-based committees as appropriate. The second area we're working on is to increase communication with families of different racial and linguistic backgrounds. And the third area that we're all working on is to improve parent understanding of the systems within each school and the district.
So at the Beach Month, we are committing to implementing at least 3 new initiatives. One for a newcomer family, so that we have a systematic process that is shared, and so that when students who are new and families that are new to the country, there is a support system that is in place. We have resources to point them to, there are people to talk to, and we want to make sure that the students feel welcome, the parents feel welcome, and they know how to begin to navigate this very, very new and very, very scary experience of starting school in a new country. We also want to look at strategies to help parents understand the curriculum and special education processes, an additional initiative in that area, and also finally an area that we're going to be using to improve parent communication, which most likely figuring out how to streamline the various communication methods that we currently have in place.
And at the Garfield Elementary School, we are undertaking a process of recruiting parents and caregivers to join our equity team. to increase the racial diversity of the team, to help drive our equity work, and also to help inform us about the barriers that may be inhibiting parent involvement.
At the Hill, we host monthly open meetings for families. We have one tonight, actually. And it's an opportunity to share updates and to really have families have the opportunity to ask and answer, get their questions answered. I've found in the previous ones that I've held this year that it's sometimes we even get into when, you know, it's the very end and a lot of families have dropped off, there's 5 people left and we're just kind of chit-chatting away. And those are the pieces that I really like. I feel like that goes a long way to helping to continue the community bonds that we have with our families, even in this virtual setting. So I'm hoping that these become more widely attended, and we also are able to offer translation for these as well using the Zoom platform, which is fantastic. So we kind of run 3 different rooms and it's pretty great.
At the Lincoln, we found this year a real need for more individualized family meetings and support. So we have added to our usual family contact monthly invitations for individual meetings with myself or the principal, as well as teachers. And then also done a lot of outreach and phone calls. There's been a big focus around food and housing security and counseling and things that are a little bit less typical than previous years, and pretty sensitive and personal. So the monthly individual invitations have been really, really great in helping support our families and also in maintaining those connections and just keeping people together as part of a school community.
At Paul Revere, we plan to begin offering, starting next week, offering monthly family forums around topics of interest to keep families informed about initiatives at the school, whether it's academic or social, emotional, mental health, etc. And then we hope to have our family liaison follow up with families that are participating in those forums to talk more with them and ideally recruit them to be a part of our PTO or a part of the governing board or other structures and committees at the school. We really could use that community and family perspective. So for strategic initiative or objective 5.2, we look to increase opportunities for students to have voice and choice in their academic programs. And it's a little bit different at elementary than it would be at high school, where you have the potential for elective courses. But what we're looking to do is to examine our current policies and gather data about our students' voice and choice at the elementary level, at the different grade levels. And I think for us at elementary, we're looking with an eye towards the potential for differentiation within our curriculum and within our instruction. We want to create opportunities for students to give us feedback on our current academic programs and how those might be improved or how we might offer something that they desire, especially in the older grades. And another area we've been exploring is how what we've learned from this experience this year and the end of last year in remote learning and hopefully hybrid soon, opportunities is how that can be leveraged in the future to offer more voice and choice for students and how we can use that around staffing choices and opportunities. And one area that we talked about as a team recently was how an instrumental music program might be offered to students using what we've learned about remote learning and hybrid learning opportunities.
So at the Beach Mart, we've done quite a bit of work over the years with project-based learning and really having students engage in some in-depth representations in problem solving. They give them opportunities. They give students opportunities to really kind of choose how they approach and solve problems. So we want to kind of figure out how we can deepen that work by using open-ended project. There's not a specific way to go about solving a particular issue. It allows students and creativity and preferences to kind of shine through in those types of projects, and then also focus on multiple representations of ideas and how students learn or are able to demonstrate that. So thinking about choice boards and how we can give students different options to demonstrate their understanding and knowledge of a particular concept or topic.
So at the Garfield Elementary School, our teachers were pretty excited and inspired by one of the keynote speakers we had on November 3rd for our district-wide Professional Development Day. And that keynote really promoted the idea of choice boards as a strategy that was well aligned to remote learning and also provided students with voice and choice so that they could have a student-centered learning experience. So at the Garfield Elementary School this year, we really want to promote the implementation of choice boards in all classrooms to provide students with choice and voice, and to support our teachers with the resources and training and information that they may need to help integrate this strategy into their planning.
At the Lincoln, one of our more popular after-school clubs was the music program, and our music teacher, Mr. McDonald, offered to run a virtual music program which the kids could learn ukulele, and offered to offer it throughout the district to all the elementary schools. So we currently, as of January 13th, was the club officially began, and there are 30 students from across all the elementary schools learning ukulele and having a really good time. It's really great to watch and see. And we hope to use what we learned from how this program runs this year to kind of build upon what Ms. Bonarigo said earlier, and maybe establish a more formal music program for all elementary schools across the district.
For this strategic initiative, we are ensuring that teacher practices across classrooms will focus on effective, student-centered, and deeper learning experiences. The common benchmarks among the schools are classroom practices will show an increased incidence in the of students engaging in deeper learning or student-centered activities, and building-based professional development opportunities are provided to increase teacher capacity to engage with deeper learning and student-centered activities. Individual principals will share their school-specific strategies.
So at the Beachmont, this is actually very in line with the trajectory that we were on. That was interrupted with, with school closure. So we're actually really excited to get back to some of the really good work on reasoning that we've been working on. For the past year, we had been doing really great work on focus on implementing reasoning routines to help kids to become deeper thinkers. As we mentioned before, a lot more project-based work to focus on problem solving and really thinking and higher thinking, analysis, and higher order thinking across the subject areas. And so this focus will really provide us with opportunities to really kind of take the next step and to go deeper with this work.
And at the Garfield Elementary School, we still have work to do in this area, but we are committed to providing professional development opportunities to increase our teacher capacity to engage with these deeper learning and student-centered activities, and we're committed to doing that at least once per trimester.
At the Hill, very similar to what Dr. Napier was saying, we were pursuing this direction to begin with. Our instructional leadership team at the beginning of last school year identified the area of student-centered instruction to be something that they wanted to develop internal PD about so that we could practice share across grade levels and classrooms. And so we've got a 6-part PD all planned out for when we're able to actually deliver that. The teachers felt that giving it this year was kind of just taking on a little bit too much. But our outcome for that is what we're hoping to see is that students are better able to share how what they're currently doing in a classroom is really leading them towards the achievement of both their academic and or their extracurricular goals. I believe that once kids are able to really articulate how practicing their phonemes is going to help them to become a better reader, once that through line becomes clear, that learning becomes a lot more sticky, and that's where I see that deeper learning happening at the elementary level. So that's our goal, is that as we're pushing towards more student-centered instruction, kids are better able to make those connections and speak to them.
At the Lincoln, we're continuing our MCIA work. We did get another mini grant from them this year, as well as the Kaleidoscope Deeper Learning work that I spoke of earlier. And we're going to use that on both those initiatives to expand our deeper learning opportunities, specifically related to tasks and project-based learning assessments.
At Paul Revere, we're implementing the literacy curriculum from the Center for the Collaborative Classroom. This is an integral part of our innovation plan for starting this year for the 5-year plan. We did a talk with school committee early this year where students did some of their reading from the program called Being a Writer. I read some of their written work that they had done. And what we found with the curriculum, which centers around reading and writing and also intervention, is that there's quite a bit of student voice and choice built into the program. It's very student-centered. Students are writing about what they want to write about, in addition to what is in the standards as well. It is aligned to the Massachusetts standards. But the students will be learning, starting next year, more comprehension strategies through the Making Meaning curriculum. Some students this year, a couple of teachers are piloting the book club curriculum, and our Title I reading teachers have piloted this year their intervention program, which is called SIPS. And what we're excited about is all of these programs work in sync with each other. The intervention program is aligned with the reading comprehension program and also with the decoding and phonics program that would be implemented K through 2.
Right. Thank you, everybody. One thing that I failed to mention at the beginning that I'm going to mention now is, like the district improvement plan, the school improvement plans are meant to be implemented over the next 18 months. We didn't think that it made sense in the current climate to set goals right now in January for the current school year, where there's so much, outside of the normal realm of work that we're able to do. So the plans that the principals just presented to you is work that they'll engage in this year, but also next school year. And with that, I'll toss it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. I do want to acknowledge that school committee member Stacey Rizzo has also joined us. Welcome, Stacey. Thank you for joining us. Any members have any questions or comments? Mrs. Rizzo?
Yes, I apologize for being late. I know prior to coming on, I was listening to it on YouTube, and someone had mentioned, and it could have been Mr. Coots, about recruiting parents and guardians for their equity team. Just wondering how that was going. Has it been started, or is it something that's coming up?
That's a great question. So in December, at our equity team meeting, we used a protocol called the Future Protocol, and we invited all parents or caregivers of the 750 students at the Garfield Elementary School to join us. We had 4 parents respond indicating that they were interested. We provided them with all the information they needed to join. Unfortunately, only 2 parents joined us for that meeting, but it was a very valuable experience for them and for us. And so the plan is to take the information that we were able to generate through that protocol and use that to reach out to parents. I definitely think, and the equity team members were also thinking along the same lines, as we as a team need to do a little bit more to clearly define our vision and the work that we want to be doing for parents will have the information they need to really feel comfortable joining us. But that is the plan, is for our February meeting and beyond, is to continuously reach out to and recruit parents to join us for those meetings.
Thank you. Baby steps.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Any other members have questions or comments? Ms. Tai? Ms. Tai, you're muted.
Okay now? Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, thanks. I think it's great that people work together so well. And I know how difficult it is to involve parents. After all, some of them have 2 or 3 jobs. Some of them they're trying so hard, and especially under the pandemic. But the commitment to the kind of choice of voice on the part of the kids, and the involvement of parents and the equity initiative, I think ultimately, although it might be difficult to implement, ultimately will give our kids and parents great power for what they choose to do for themselves and for what they can contribute to the school system as a whole and to their own particular schools. So I really compliment you on how well you have defined that. It seems that you must be certain about how difficult it will be, but you are committed to doing it and to designing your school-wide practices toward those ends. So congratulations to you, and thank you very much for sharing all of this with us. You do wonderful work.
Thank you, Ms. Ty. Any other members? Ms. Gravellisi.
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo. And thank you all, to all the principals for this great presentation. The format being different this year, of course, we used to have questions along the way. So some of my questions have just been answered with, Ms. Rizzo's question. One that I had, I know that the Hill and the Lincoln said that they had some parent meetings already, and the Paul Revere is starting theirs next week. Did you have, I know at the Hill you said you didn't have like an overwhelming response?
Not necessarily overwhelming, and it's not the same. There's one parent who comes every single time, and then we end up hanging out like 15 minutes after the meeting and just chit-chatting, which is fabulous. Not super well attended. I'm playing with how I advertise them, and playing with like the open meeting with just like question and answer, and I actually have something I need to share with you. So tonight's meeting is, I have something I really need to share with you. Please join me. So we'll see how that changes the response.
Good.
But yeah, the parents who do show up are always asking great questions, super supportive, really kind, very generous. And looking at our parent survey results, I feel like playing with the communication might be the way to go to generate more interest and more attendance.
And how has it gone at the Lincoln School, Sarah?
It's gone very well. It's been really great to connect with families on an individual level. I think especially the bigger stuff is shared out, in dojo or more town meeting style, and that has not been as well attended as the response to individual calls or individual virtual meetings.
All you can do is keep trying, and the more the word gets out there, and if one more parent gets involved, sometimes that means one more will join in, and that's how we keep it going, especially in this remote platform. I'm sure it's been difficult, but keep up the great work.
Thank you, Ms. Gravellisi. Any other members? Mr. Franti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a general question. How do you guys feel, either any principal can answer it, the cooperation of the parents with the situation that's going on with the remote learning?
I think the parents have been amazing. We've gotten really great feedback. It's one of the questions I kind of check in on when we do the individual meetings, and they've been amazing, really amazing. If you think about, so many of our parents are working multiple jobs and helping with virtual learning and dealing with food and housing insecurity. It's really amazing. They've been amazing, really incredible.
Good.
I would agree. I feel as though the parents of the students at the Garfield have stepped up in amazing and appreciated in unexpected ways. And I don't think we'd be anywhere near where we are now without the involvement and partnership and commitment from the families. They are critical in making sure that the children are where they're supposed to be when they need to be there, and following up with teachers and playing an important role in encouraging and really staying positive with their children through a very difficult time.
One thing we've talked about here at Paul Revere is how we feel like we're closer to parents than we've ever been. And that we know them better than we've ever known them, and they know us, and we're in their homes and they're in our homes, and via the magic of Zoom. And I think, I also want to say that I so appreciate the addition of the family liaisons this year. I know I speak for the other principals in saying that they have been so instrumental in communicating with families, but also in supporting families. I honestly sometimes don't know how I would do my job without my family liaison. She's been incredible. So thank you to all of you for providing for that in our budgets.
Any other members have any questions? Mrs. Rizzo?
And this is to Dr. Napier, and just out of curiosity, do you have a large newcomer population at Beachmont? And community.
Yeah, we have a significant amount. Proportionally, I think we have about as much as the other schools. So we're of course smaller, but we, at certain points in the year, we do have a pickup, especially when the school year in countries like in South America ends. We have a large increase in the number of students. So we have enough to, have to be strategic and thoughtful about how we welcome these families and support them. And we also have quite a students that are in the 1 to 2 year range that we have a supplemental support program for them as well after school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Ms. Gravellisi?
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo. Each of you had indicated that you were working with colleges and universities to, increase the diverse pool of candidates. How has that gone this year with the remote learning? And has you had progress? And which colleges or universities have any of you been able to, network with?
We currently have student teachers working both remotely and then, sharing space with the teacher in the building, obviously masked. And they've been coming from Salem State and Gordon College predominantly. That all of that stuff was started last year. So as we get into second semester of student teaching, I actually have a para who is doing student teaching here at my school. So she's taking a leave of absence from being a paraprofessional to finish her student teaching, hopefully someday become a early childhood teacher in the city. So yay.
Nice.
So those things are still moving forward. I do not see an increase in the diversity of those folks at this point in time, but I'm hoping that as we move forward into the next iteration of student teaching opportunities to come up, that continues to get larger.
And I'll just add that the Equity Advisory Board and our Revere Educators Leadership Board, the recruitment, hiring, and placement team from the RELB are working on participating in hosting a job fair. And they've been working in partnership with the Equity Advisory Board to design that for April. And there'll be more information on that forthcoming, but the focus of that job fair is to recruit and hire candidates of color and multi or bilingual candidates as well.
Any other members? Ms. Tai?
Yes. I know that we're talking about elementary schools, but I was just wondering if any of you had thought about or had put in place an initiative to deal with the particular needs of the LGBTQ community. There might be some children who even at that early age are struggling with their sexual identity, or there might be some parents who feel left out because of their identity. So if you didn't have anything, I just wanted to put that thought in your heads about how you might deal with that community in a particular way.
We did last year, Ms. Ty, have a presenter at our school from PFLAG who came and talked to teachers about and provided some training at our school on one of the early release days. But I think that's a very important point that you're making and something for us all to certainly be thinking about. It's just certainly something we are encountering at the elementary level.
Thank you.
And I'll add one more piece onto that too, Carol. That is a piece of the work that our Equity Advisory Board is going to undertake. Our focus right now is specific on racial equity and racial diversity and anti-racism because that's where we need to be focused. But I don't want that to imply that other aspects of equity are not in our purview or on our radar. They certainly are. But our primary focus right now is on anti-racism and racial equity.
Sometimes the two are involved.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can I just add what Carol said is really important, especially given today's world. And I'm thinking of Dr. Rachel Levine and what she is going through right now as she'll be was she already appointed the Secretary of State? I'm not sure, under President Biden, but there's been a lot of homophobic, she's transgender, and just a lot of really nasty things out in today's world. And where some of even our elementaries are on Facebook and just anywhere on the internet, they're hearing these things. So hopefully somewhere along the line, this is, well, teaching tolerance is in our curriculum at all times. So yes, Carol, great point. Imagine, Carol, I'm agreeing.
We agree on a lot. We're just very vociferous when we don't.
Don't use big words.
And just to clarify, Dr. Levine is President Biden's pick for Assistant Secretary of Health.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other members have any questions or comments? No. One quick thing for me, one thing that perked up my ears a little bit was around the needs of families outside of the regular items that you all might be hearing about, right? And I think especially around food insecurity, around housing insecurity. And I want to make sure that there are intentional connections between what the city's doing and that what the family liaisons are doing, because there are a lot of resources available, and I know everyone's connected. I just want to make sure that that's happening and that people know that there are outlets and resources available through the city that we can connect families to, and I just wanted to make sure that was like something that was really clear, because obviously these have been really challenging times for everyone, especially our families, and it is really an opportune time to have parent liaisons or family liaisons during this really difficult time, because connecting with and seeing parent engagement and the low level that we've had historically, there have to be ways to meet people where they are. And we've tried to do that on the city side, but it's great to hear that there's like those connections that are happening even between all of you and your families.
And I'll just add, Mr. Mayor, one of our new practices this year in order to engage the community more is we invite a community leader to each one of our cabinet meetings. And so 2 months ago, we were able to engage with Rashid from Messier, and he came and talked to us about the services they provide.
Oh, good.
And this last month, Dimple Rana actually came on and met with us, and we were able to really, exactly to your point, making sure that principals are aware of the resources that are available in the city and who to connect with. And Dr. Garcia has also worked with Dimple. Our family liaisons are currently engaged in the training that the city's COVID liaisons, neighborhood liaisons, had a couple of months ago. So we're really leveraging how to parallel those two systems and making sure folks are working together.
Excellent. Excellent.
May I add just, Mr. Mayor, on your point, I just want to say thank you, because at the school level, we are getting so many references for, resources and so forth. And my colleagues talked about our parent meetings. Our first one was the presentation to our families of the various resources that have been collected here at the school level. So we've been publicizing that and sharing that. And we have a sort of a handbook of list of all the resources, from food to housing and so forth. So we're very fortunate that we've received those supports from you, from the superintendent's office as well. And I would just echo my colleagues on saying how helpful having the family liaison has been for us, because she is in essence serving as our point person, coordinating those things. So when teachers are hearing information from families who are saying maybe they have rent insecurity, we have a pathway that goes right to our family liaison. She has the resources right at our fingertips. She's making calls to families to follow up so that they're matching all these different resources that normally might not be, that you would go to your teacher for, but because it's come up in conversation, it's been very quickly responded to from all the systems and supports that we received from the city and from the superintendent's office. So thank you all.
Great. Thank you.
Good. Mhm.
Dr. Kelly, do we want to move into individual schools, or?
I think that was part there. They did their individual pieces during the presentation, but I think that what we need now is a motion from a committee member to accept the school improvement plan.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept and support the school improvement plans given to us by our elementary excellent principals.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Muted.
he's waving.
I think he might be having a muting issue.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'll invite
Thank
the
you.
principals to get back to their
It was
daily
wonderful.
routine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
guys.
you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the calendar. Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to actually share my screen. I emailed you all a short time ago because I just about 10 minutes ago realized that the draft calendar I sent to you last week was not the correct version.
Right.
You all picked up on that. But so here is the correct version. And this is the version that Robin will post with the materials from this meeting. And what you'll notice, the only adjustments we've made were for February and March. When we posted this calendar in August, we did so with the disclaimer that we would need to continue to monitor trends with COVID and see what was happening in the community and in the state and in the country, and continue to see where we are to understand better what mode of instruction we would be in. We find ourselves today, so we had drafted out the calendar through December, being fairly confident that school would be in a remote learning mode until at least the middle of the fall. As it is, that persisted. And so it's now time to think about the coming months. And that required that we make adjustments to our traditional calendar for at least February and March. And so that's what you see here. If you look at the version of the calendar that's currently posted in our reopening plan, there was a half day scheduled for February 10th and a half day scheduled for, I believe it was February 17th. We had some other dates over on the side that included parent conferences, which we're not going to be conducting in person, just as we didn't in the first trimester or the first semester for the middle and high school kids. And so we made those adjustments here to reflect that in February and March, there wouldn't be those meetings. And so we need the committee to vote on these changes. We did present them to the teachers union and anticipated that they understood that we were going to be revisiting the calendar as we progressed through this difficult period. They did indicate that they were opposed to removing the half days. Our strategy for removing the half days is the fact that we've built professional development as part of their remote schedule, which we did negotiate with the teachers. And we also presented the calendar in August as a draft with the disclaimer that it would need to be revisited roughly every 6 weeks. We haven't had any major changes since August to our practices and procedures. So there were no updates at the 6-week intervals to date. But at this point, I think it's prudent to alert families to the fact that, we're at least going to be still remote for February. March is a little bit of a question mark, but most likely early March, we won't be changing significantly from our remote model either. And so it makes sense to not have those half days and not have those parent conferences in person. But I do want to make sure the committee is aware that the teachers union was not fully in favor of those changes.
Do any members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Franti?
Diane, a question. You sent us a calendar for 1/12/2021. Shouldn't we be using that one instead of the one dated 8/8/2020?
The one that I sent you last week, I sent you a wrong one. Did I send the wrong one again today? Which one did I send you today?
I didn't look at today's. I just had the one
okay.
that you sent last week.
The one that I just sent, it was during this meeting, is dated 1/27/21.
Okay, all right.
And that's the one, it only shows the alterations to February and March. It is our hope, as we've talked about several times in the last few weeks, that we're going to be back in school for April. So I have not altered that schedule. If we are back to in-person learning, even in a hybrid model for April, then we would need to recapture the time for teacher professional development at that point, because it would not be evident in the day-to-day practice of teachers.
Right.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Through you to Diane. Diane, when we negotiated with the teachers on the half days, wasn't there some flexibility that was granted in lieu of something else? Because I think the committee expressed one way, they expressed another day. And I'm much concerned here is that how much say do they have on the school calendar? I mean, they're hired 180 days, whatever the school calendar is, and these are the working that we have come up with. Could you clarify something for me on that?
Yeah, and I think that what you're referring to is the 184 days that we typically do with students contractually. And one of the things that we had bargained with them was modifying those extra 4 days that we do beyond what's required from the state. And so we did ultimately agree that 2 of those days could be used for professional development when we transition to a new instructional model. And that 2 of those days would remain student days, but would have some flexibility around them depending on what our needs are as we progress. Because even now, we still need to have some flexibility. We are still not certain about where the track of this virus is going, and where we might be a month or 6 weeks or 2 months from now. It's all still very unpredictable. And so I think that's the piece that you're talking about, Mr. Sinella, that we negotiated some flexibility around. It wasn't really involved in these monthly half days, but I would argue that the union agreed when we did the scheduling, when we changed the scheduling and incorporated professional development that way, and really modified the hours of synchronous and asynchronous time that they had with students, that they were agreeing to this. And I think it was very clear at the time that we would be revisiting when we knew where we were going. It was too difficult in August to say where we would be in February and March. And I thought that that was part of the agreement that, you know, if we were going to stay remote, then our practices would remain consistent. And so really it's the school committee who votes the calendar. There are some pieces of this that are subject to bargaining. I don't believe, and I did consult with the school committee's legal counsel on this. I don't believe that we are in any way outside of the scope of your authority to make these changes for February and March.
Well, thank you for the clarification.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mrs. Sinella. Any other members?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the
So moved.
calendar?
Second?
Second.
Question
Roll
before
call.
we approve it, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Ms.
One
Francie,
question.
go ahead. Yep,
Diane,
go
the
ahead.
one you just sent us, I looked up, it's 8/8. Is that the correct one? 8/8/20?
The one that I sent you today is?
Yeah, it says 8/5/20.
Oh, I see. It says it inside. I didn't edit that. Sorry, Michael. I edited the name of the file to reflect today's date.
Okay, all right.
Okay, sorry. I should
All right, it's okay.
update that though. Thank you for pointing that
All
out.
right. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, roll call of the members?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. The last item on the agenda are two motions that we have. And Dr. Kelly, do you want to talk quickly about them or?
Yeah, sure. So we had last year submitted two proposals to the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, for accelerated repair projects at the Lincoln School and at the Beachmont School. And at the Lincoln, we actually submitted two separate projects. One was for a new roof and the other one was for new windows and doors. We were rejected on the roof project because the existing roof is not old enough to qualify under existing parameters for an MSBA replacement. So that's on hold. But they did accept us into the accelerated repair program for new doors and windows. And I'll just say that with that, we have replaced the doors there more recently. So it might end up being just a window project. But their experts will come out and look at everything and make that determination for us. And we were also accepted into the accelerated repair program for a new boiler system at the Beachmont School. The system there is antiquated and needs to be replaced, similar to the boiler replacement project that we did at the Garfield building 2 years ago. That project was also accepted in for accelerated repair. So we're going to have these two projects underway. And the next step of that is for the school committee and the city council, who's actually going to allocate the funding, to vote to do that, to allocate the funds. And the funds that are being allocated right now are just for the feasibility study. And that's when a designer appointed by the MSBA, we don't select these groups the way that we do for the new high school. The designer will design the project, and then that will help us understand how much the whole cost of the job will be. And when we come to that point in the process, there'll be another vote to actually fund the whole project, which will, I imagine, be in the couple of $1 million range for each of these projects. And the incredible thing about partnering with the MSBA is that they pick up a large portion of that cost based on our financial levels in the city. And right now, we're still at about a 77% reimbursement rate with MSBA. And so these two motions today are for the city, for the school committee to approve the funding for the feasibility studies of each of these two projects. And the cost of that design process is about $60,000 each.
Do any members have any questions or comments? Mr. Ferranti?
No, I'm sure we all want these improvements made. So it might be a good idea to have the secretary read each one separately and we could vote on them.
Yep, we'll get to that. I think Mr. Franti just had one.
Just one quick
okay.
question.
Sorry, Michael.
Assuming that we approve and the city council approves the money, Diane, when do you think that we could possibly start these projects? Obviously, it's an estimate, but when do you think? If you had an estimate?
I talked a little bit to Carl about that. We're hoping that we can get going this summer. But that's not definite. It's all a process, as you know. So once we get the designs, then the project has to go out to bid. And so it's going to depend on what kind of bids we get back. You might recall with the Garfield boiler project, the bids came in a little bit later. They didn't actually go out until August, and they were coming in September. And so because a lot of the companies were largely employed at that time, they were bidding at much higher rates than what we wanted. And our OPM actually looked out for our best interest and said, you guys should hold off and put this back out to bid in like February. You'll get much better rates. Because we were on the end of a heating season in February instead of on the beginning in September, October. So we followed that advice and we're able to have a significant cost savings. So we'll see. It's going to depend on how quickly this rolls out, Michael, but we'll continue to monitor for things like that and make sure that we're saving as much money as we can, but still doing what we need to do to make sure the kids have safe learning environments.
Well, the summer will be best for the boiler.
True.
The summer would be the best.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franti. We'll now move to Mr. D'Ambrosio. If you could read the two motions.
Absolutely. All right. The first motion is as follows: that the City of Revere appropriate the amount of $60,000 for the purpose of paying costs of design and planning services for the replacement of windows and doors at the Abraham Lincoln Elementary School, located at 68 Tuckerman Street, Revere, Massachusetts, 02151, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the City of Revere may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, said amount to be expended under the direction of the school committee. To meet this appropriation, the city treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44 or pursuant to other enabling authority. The City of Revere acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA, and any costs the City of Revere incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the City of Revere, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the City of Revere and the MSBA.
Roll call on the motion.
Mrs. Bronston
Need a
Rizzo.
second? Do we need a second,
Yes.
Mr.?
Second,
Mrs.
Nice.
Bronston Rizzo.
yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio.
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti.
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi.
Yes.
Mr. Sinella.
yes,
Ms. Ty.
Yes,
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. Mr. D'Ambrosio, you want to read the next motion?
Absolutely. The motion is as follows: that the City of Revere appropriate the amount of $60,000 for the purpose of paying costs of designing planning services for the replacement of boilers at the Beachmont Elementary School, located at 15 Everard Street, Revere, Massachusetts, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which City of Revere may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, said amount to be expended under the direction of the school committee. To meet this appropriation for the city, to meet this appropriation, the city treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44 or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The City of Revere acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA, and any costs the City of Revere incurs in excess of any grant approved by and received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the City of Revere, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the City of Revere and the MSBA.
Second,
Second, roll call?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. Do any members have any other comments? Okay, seeing no further business before the committee, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, second,
All right. We will adjourn this meeting at 1:14.